talk about the big blue chips selling off, a day for profit taking on Friday. Let's start with that.
Yeah, I mean, beginning of last week, we saw a lot of interest in blue chips. A lot of them touched highs, multi-year highs, like you said. But towards the end of the week, we saw some weakness. Investors taking profit, but it wasn't anything alarming. We didn't see them come down more than 5%. We saw mild profit taking, so it wasn't anything that was alarming.
And obviously no particular sector was hit otherwise. I've seen a couple of references to concern among investors about the election. I know this is mentioned from time to time, but I suppose now that we're into 2013, the election is in a couple of months' time. Some of the words that I've seen are confusion, concerns about logistics in the primaries, and generally, I suppose, a concern with memories of 2007, worries about how the election could affect the economy. How valid are these concerns?
Well, these concerns are very valid. I mean, just looking at last week, beginning of the week, there was not much pressure on the stock market, and investors were not very worried. But coming to Thursday, when the primaries were on full force, and Friday when they're on full force, and we saw a lot of confusion, a lot of logistical issues, a bit of chaos, and that's when the issues on elections and started weighing heavily on investors' minds. So I think these concerns are valid, and even moving towards elections and closer into March, we will see investors have a wait-and-see approach.
Of course, the government presumably will be looking at the previous experience with the elections. Do you expect moves by government, statements, actions to calm investors' fears? What is the track record like in talking to the market?
Well, the government hasn't in the past really engaged investors, but I think this time people have resolved in their minds that we do not want to see a repeat of what we saw in 2009 with the post-election violence. So I think investors have been mostly calmed, especially after some of the perpetrators of the violence were arraigned in ICC. Investors' fears were calmed, knowing that Kenyans have learnt a lesson and they are not willing to go back.
Well, let's move to one of the companies, Brenda, Kenya Airways. They're in the news a lot and often for the wrong reasons. They had issues with labour relations, industrial court decisions and that kind of thing. So now we see they've lost another senior executive. The commercial director has left and they've got a new marketing director. So some instability at Kenya Airways.
Yeah, I think the company is under pressure, especially during a period of expansion and to the magnitude of expansion that they're looking to do. There's some pressure within management to perform and to do well, and even in a turbulent airline aviation industry. But I think the company got some reprieve last week after the courts decided to have an injunction on the ruling that was to see them hire back their staff, and it would obviously have a negative impact. So we saw that reprieve have some impact positively on the stock market. Losing their commercial director really isn't going to, I don't think it will be priced into the stock this week. I don't think investors are seeing that as a main concern.
Right, and then I suppose linked to the airways sector, which is notoriously difficult to manage, is the tourism sector, and apparently tourism not so good after the festive season.
Yeah, it's not. Actually, right now we're seeing a lot of low season, and especially because of the chaos and a bit of terrorism attacks that we've seen in the coast. So I think, and we had America put a travel ban on Kenya just, I think, last week. So that has obviously affected the tourism industry. And we think leading up to elections and a bit after elections, there'll be low season mostly in the coastal region.